Sophia sat in her usual corner of the long family dinner table, gently swirling her wine as her face held a polite smile. She had long mastered the art of emotional restraint, especially during family dinners where her voice was often drowned out by declarations disguised as love. But this time when her mother casually announced, "Your sister will be moving into your apartment for a while," something in her chest tightened. No one had asked her. There had been no prior discussion. Just a statement as if the private space she had carefully built with every saved coin was community property. Sophia had spent 5 years saving for that apartment, from late nights at the cafe to freelance translation gigs online. Her little downtown apartment wasn't just a place to live, it was her triumph, her symbol of autonomy after years of being the reliable daughter. Every brick, every piece of furniture was part of her freedom. And now her family treated it as a backup plan for her younger sister, who had just broken up with her boyfriend. Her sister Lily sat a few seats away, unable to hide her smug expression. The slight curl of her lip and the arrogant glint in her eye screamed, "This is already decided." As for her parents, of course they had made all the arrangements. Her mother was already scheduling the move while her father silenced her attempts to object with his usual family helps family. The problem was no one had ever helped her. When Sophia was in college, she took out student loans while Lily got a supplementary credit card to explore herself. When Sophia's first apartment flooded, she had to stay in a cheap hotel while Lily refused to offer a spare bed because she was setting up her art space. And now, as Sophia finally claimed her first sanctuary in life, her family once again decided to share it without consent. Sophia remained silent for the rest of dinner. She picked at her food, playing the familiar role she had long perfected, the agreeable daughter, the peacemaker, the one who didn't stir conflict. But inside her, a silent storm was rising. This wasn't the first time she had been treated this way, but perhaps it was the first time she couldn't let it go. The usual phrases echoed like background music on loop. "You have a spare room. It's just temporary for Lily. I think this will bring the sisters closer." Sophia nodded faintly, offered no objections. But in her mind, fragments of a plan were quietly beginning to take shape. That night back at her apartment, she didn't turn on the lights immediately. Sophia stood in the dark, gazing out the window as the city lights cast soft reflections on the hardwood floor she had polished just yesterday. Her chest tightened. This space wasn't just a home. It was a symbol of every effort she had made that no one had ever truly acknowledged. The office, what her parents casually called the extra room, was where she wrote environmental consultancy reports. It was where she dreamed of starting her own firm one day. The desk, the shelves, every binder and document, pieces of a dream still forming. And yet with just one dinner, just one sentence, it was all at risk of being dismissed. Sophia opened her laptop. She didn't even know what she intended at first, but her fingers moved relentlessly. She looked up her lease agreement, the building's rules about long-term guests, tenant protection laws in her city. Slowly, the information turned into ideas, the ideas into determination. Not because she hated Lily, but because this time, if she did nothing, she would once again be erased from her own life. She had once believed that silence was wisdom, but now she understood, in a family that doesn't respect boundaries, silence only invites encroachment. And if she didn't stand up for herself, no one else would. As the middle child in a family of 3, Sophia had long understood her role, the balancer. She had none of the privileges of her older sister Lily, the so-called artistic soul, praised for her creative flares and funded for expensive workshops she rarely completed. Nor did she enjoy the leniency of her younger brother Leo, the perpetual baby of the family whose every failure was excused as part of finding himself. Sophia was different. She was the reasonable one. the child no one had to worry about, the one who showed up on time, did what was expected, and carried the burden when others dropped it. She remembered the summer she turned 16 when her parents casually informed her she'd be babysitting her cousins every weekend without asking. A promise made in her name as if her time had no personal value. Later in college, she discovered her parents had given her apartment address to distant relatives. They just need a place to crash for a few nights also without her knowledge or consent. No one asked if she was tired. No one asked if she agreed. Her sister Lily often spiraled in relationships or careers, but each downfall was met with emergency funds, a stay at a family property, or a vacation to recover. Lily's breakdowns were framed as tragic. Sophia's burnout was labeled weakness or worse, dramatics. Sophia had grown used to being the one who could handle it. And because of that, the family placed every burden on her shoulders, never once stopping to see it as unfair. What pained Sophia the most wasn't being overlooked, it was being assumed. They assumed she'd agree, assumed she didn't need help, assumed that the moment they said Lily is struggling, Sophia would automatically step aside. That dinner wasn't just a shock, it was the culmination of every moment she had been left out of the conversation. No one meant harm, but everyone had grown too used to standing on her silence. That's what made it unbearable. She didn't hate Lily. In fact, for years she had covered for her rewriting Lily's resume before interviews, helping her find apartments, even renting a car under her own name when Lily's credit was blocked. But none of that was acknowledged. It became normal, as if Sophia was born to carry things for others. When Sophia said no, like when she declined to host Thanksgiving last year, she was branded selfish. But when others refused her, it was understandable. She used to think, if I stay silent and do things right, eventually they'll see. But now she realized when you carry everything for too long, people not only stop thanking you, they forget you can collapse. And when people assume you never need anything, they stop listening even when you do speak. Sophia didn't want to rebel. She only wanted one thing: to be seen as her own person, not a convenient role others leaned on. When Sophia returned to her apartment after that suffocating dinner, she was no longer the woman who nodded along just to keep the peace. She entered her living room silently, but her mind was shouting. Her mother's words echoed in her head, "Lily's just staying temporarily. Sisters should share with each other. You don't even live with anyone." All assumptions that Sophia had no right to say no. She sat down in the wooden chair by the window, gazing out at the city lights. In that glow, her apartment wasn't just a place, it was an extension of who she was. A dream realized after hundreds of days of saving, thousands of hours of part-time jobs, and dozens of sacrificed weekends traded for stability. She opened her laptop. No hesitation. Every move she made was precise, quiet. First, she reviewed her lease. Were there clauses about long-term guests? Any legal grounds if a relative tried to move in without her consent? Then she researched tenant protections, building regulations. She jotted everything down with care. Sophia didn't plan to rebel. She planned to draw a line. And she knew to do that she couldn't confront them head-on. Because if she raised her voice, they'd say she was too sensitive. If she pushed back, they'd say, "This is just about family." No, not this time. She wouldn't argue. She would act. She called her closest friend Emily, the one who had witnessed her quiet battles for years. "They made another decision for me," she said, voice low but firm. "Lily is moving into my apartment without even asking." There was silence, and then Emily replied, her tone calm but indignant. "No, not this time. Sophia, you need to hold on to what's yours." Sophia didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear, but because her mind was working like a machine. The next morning, she visited the building management office. "Can I ask about guest stay policies?" she inquired, her tone calm but direct. The manager, a woman named Linda, shared the details. Anyone staying over 14 days must be registered, pass a background check, and be approved by management. That was her first step. By noon, she messaged a coworker, Alex, who had mentioned his condo was under renovation and that he was looking for a temporary place. "My apartment's available for a while," she wrote. "If you need a place, I can offer a temporary lease." Alex agreed immediately. They arranged to meet and complete the paperwork, all above board. Sophia didn't hide her plan from her family, but she didn't announce it either. She let things unfold silently, just as they had always made decisions for her. Her parents sent texts asking which shelves Sophia should clear, what bed Lily should bring. Sophia responded vaguely, "I'll check over the weekend." Each of their messages implied that she had agreed, but this time her silence did not mean surrender. She photographed the apartment, locked up important documents, rented a small storage unit for personal items, then drafted a simple document confirming Alex as the legal temporary resident approved by management. By Saturday, the day her family had designated for the move, Sophia had already left the city. She wasn't running away. She was choosing space so her family could face the boundaries she had now made real. The following week after that fateful dinner, Sophia lived in two parallel worlds. One was her regular life, full of meetings, deadlines, and deliverables. The other was her family's world, where everyone was actively planning for Lily to move into her apartment without so much as checking with her again. Her mother texted almost daily, "We'll bring a few boxes for Lily this Saturday. Your dad wants to know about the parking situation at your building. Clear the left bookshelf so Lily can place her makeup." Every message sounded final, as if her presence was irrelevant. "And Lily," her sister sent a photo of a brand new bed with the message, "This one totally matches your apartment. Might swap it with your old one. Hey. Sophia read each message in silence. No anger, no arguments. But each line felt like a small incision into her sense of ownership, into the space she had poured years of sacrifice into. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she added another bullet point to her prep list: rent a storage unit. After work, she visited a facility near her building and signed a 1-month rental contract. Important things, documents, keepsakes, work tools were carefully packed and sealed. When her colleague Alex stopped by to view the apartment ahead of his stay, Sophia walked him through each room with calm clarity. No anxiety, no panic. She was moving with the quiet authority of a homeowner finally living as one in full. On Thursday, Sophia installed a small security camera in the living room, a simple device synced to her phone. Not because she feared theft, but to document everything just in case things got out of hand. She also dropped off a copy of her short-term lease agreement with Alex at the building manager's office, along with a signed letter confirming his authorized stay compliant with all policies. Meanwhile, her phone kept buzzing with family messages. Her mother wrote, "Lily really needs a fresh start. This will bring you two closer. You're barely home anyway. What's the harm in sharing a little?" Her father's messages were short, firm. "We'll arrive at 11 a.m. Saturday. Be ready with the parking pass." Not a single line. "Are you okay?" Not once. "Do you agree?" Sophia didn't reply. She understood that her silence now wasn't submission. It was preparation. On Saturday morning before leaving town, she handed Alex the apartment keys, a checklist of instructions and emergency contacts, none of which included her family. Then she turned her phone to silent mode. As the car drove out of the city, Sophia didn't look back. Not because she was running, but because for the first time she no longer needed anyone's permission to protect what was hers. On Saturday morning, the late autumn sunlight stretched across the beach outside the small coastal hotel Sophia had booked for her escape. She didn't wake up from an alarm, but from instinct. She reached for her phone. 6 missed calls from her mother, 4 from her father. Lily's texts blinked nonstop. 9:15 a.m. We're on the way, sis. Got the moving truck too. 9:40 a.m. Is anyone home? 10:00 a.m. The door won't open. Where are you? Sophia took a deep breath. She didn't feel guilty, only calm. She typed a single message to Alex. They've arrived. Everything okay? His reply came within seconds. Saw them in the hallway. I've got it. At 10:45 a.m., her security app pinged with motion detection. She opened it and there they were. Her father knocking repeatedly. Her mother ringing the bell like it was an emergency. Lily pacing, arms full of bags, her face twisted with tension and growing frustration. None of them understood what was happening. A few minutes later, her father pulled out his phone and called building management. Soon after, a security guard arrived, calm, professional. Words were exchanged. Her mother gestured wildly. Her father raised his voice. But the guard simply shook his head. Then the door opened. Alex appeared. T-shirt, jeans, coffee mug in hand. Calm. Unbothered. Everyone froze. Her father began to argue, but Alex quietly produced the lease agreement, pointed to the building logo, and let the guard verify it. Her mother clutched her chest, eyes wide. Lily stood motionless, then her face flushed with confusion and disbelief. The scene lasted only minutes, but to Sophia it felt like a slow-motion film. Alex didn't say much. Just stated, I'm the authorized temporary tenant. The security guard nodded in confirmation. When her father raised his voice, the guard stepped calmly between them. We can't let non-residents enter without tenant approval, he said firmly. The air grew heavy. Her mother whispered, Have we been tricked? Lily stared at the camera lens, still unaware Sophia was watching everything unfold. Her father stood stiffly, eyes flickering with anger and confusion. But then, forced by the clarity of the moment, he turned and led them away from the hallway. Sophia exhaled. A long, steady breath. She hadn't realized she'd been holding it. Her phone buzzed again. Mom, what are you doing? This is betrayal. Dad, call us now before things get worse. Lily, you're the coldest person I've ever known. Sophia didn't respond. Instead, Alex called her. It's done, he said. Your dad threatened to call the cops. But once he saw the documents, security backed me up. Are you okay? Sophia asked. I'm good. But now they know they can't force this anymore. Sophia smiled, tears blurring her eyes. She didn't need to yell. She didn't need to beg. She only needed to say no with action, with preparation, and with unwavering resolve. That afternoon, as Sophia sat alone in a seaside cafe, her phone began to buzz relentlessly. Though she had silenced it, the screen kept lighting up each message like a crashing wave against her fragile calm. Mom, I truly don't understand you. You chose a stranger over your family, Dad. This is childish. You've embarrassed the whole family. Lily, you destroyed my chance at a fresh start. All you care about is yourself. Sophia turned the phone face down, but the vibrations continued. She wasn't surprised. Growing up in the Jensen family had taught her if you don't comply, they don't discuss, they attack. When you set boundaries, they call it betrayal. She knew she wasn't wrong. But that didn't make the ache in her chest disappear. No matter how strong she was still a daughter, and this was still her family. A small part of her still longed for them to understand she hadn't said no out of hatred, but because she could no longer tolerate being dismissed. She opened one last message from her father. We'll be discussing this. Expect a meeting early next week. No choice. Sophia didn't reply. Instead, she wrote a note to herself. No arguments, no explanations, no apologies for protecting myself. The next day, the family's attack shifted tactics, recruit the extended circle. Messages began pouring in from her aunt, her grandmother, even distant relatives. Her Aunt Sophia, how could you do this? Family is everything. Her grandmother, Your mother always said you were the sensible one." "What happened to you?" No one asked what had really happened. No one asked if Sophia was okay. Everyone responded based on her mother's version, where Sophia was the traitor, the cold-hearted one. Sophia read the messages feeling nothing. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just tired. But in that weariness, she found clarity. This is the cost of changing your role in a family. When you stop enduring, they'll try everything to pull you back into your place. She called Alex to thank him for standing firm. He chuckled. "Your family's intense. But I'm glad you did the right thing." That afternoon, she walked along the beach, leaving behind hundreds of unread texts. No urge to reply. No thoughts of "I need to fix this." For the first time, Sophia let the storm pass without stepping into it. Back at the hotel, she opened her laptop and typed the first line in her journal. "For the first time in my life, I'm not trying to be accepted. I'm trying to be myself." 3 days after the incident, with no word from Sophia, her silence unsettled the family more than any argument ever had. Her father, who usually wielded authority like a weapon, now found himself unsure of his daughter's next move. Her mother couldn't sleep, not just because Lily was still crashing in their guest room, but because of Sophia's unnerving silence. On Wednesday afternoon, a message from her father arrived, short, stripped of command. "We need to talk. When you're ready." Sophia didn't respond right away. She let it sit overnight and replied the next morning, "This weekend, if you're open to a conversation based on mutual respect." No sending the address, no preset time, no "we've decided," just a choice. And that in itself was new and unsettling enough to make her parents pause and agree. On Saturday morning, at a neutral cafe halfway between her parents' house and her apartment, Sophia arrived 15 minutes early. She picked a table near the window, her back to the wall for grounding. The cappuccino in front of her acted as an anchor for her thoughts in the emotional storm ahead. Her mother walked in first, then her father, then Lily. All three sat down. No one spoke for several seconds. For the first time, Sophia wasn't the one being questioned, she was the one being listened to. Her father spoke first, as he always did. "This has gone too far. You owe us an explanation." Sophia didn't flinch. She replied gently but firmly, "No. What's needed now isn't an explanation, it's a conversation. And I'll only stay if everyone's here to listen." Lily lowered her head, looking remorseful. She murmured, "I thought you agreed." "That's what Mom told me." Sophia turned to her mother. Her mother looked away. "I was never asked. The decision was made for me like always. The only difference is this time I didn't stay silent." Silence hung in the air. Her father didn't argue back. He leaned back, nodded slowly. Her mother placed a hand on the table, not touching Sophia, but close enough to signal a desire to reconnect. "We got used to you always going along," her mother whispered. "Maybe because you're quiet, we thought you were fine." "Silence doesn't mean agreement," Sophia replied. "And it doesn't mean I'm easygoing. From now on, if something involves me, I need to be asked. No more assumptions. No more decisions made without me." All three nodded. For the first time, a boundary was acknowledged, not after a shouting match, but after a silence that finally spoke loud enough. The days following the cafe conversation didn't bring any miracles. The family didn't suddenly become perfect. No one transformed overnight. But one thing was clear, the shift had begun. Sophia's mother called her not to inform her of a decision, but to ask. For the first time in years, she opened with a simple line, "Sophia, do you have a moment? I'd like to ask you something." No commanding tone, no phrases like "you should" or "we've already decided." There was hesitation, but also sincerity. Her father remained cautious. His brief texts still carried the edge of someone used to control. But instead of instructions, they came as updates like looking into new places for Lily. A few options look good. Lily showed the most noticeable change. She texted Sophia asking her to lunch. During the meal, she confessed, "I honestly never thought you were tired. I figured you were fine because you never said anything." Sophia looked at her sister not as the spoiled, demanding girl she'd known, but as a young woman slowly waking up to the roles their family had forced on them both. They didn't speak much during lunch, but for the first time, the silence between them felt safe, not strained. The following month, the family held their usual dinner. But this time, Sophia didn't immediately accept the invitation. She simply replied, "This week's busy for me. I'll check my schedule. If I can, I'll stop by." No one pressured her. No one scolded her. Lily had found a small apartment close to work away from downtown. Sophia didn't help choose it or accompany her, but when Lily sent a photo with the message, "I did it by myself." Sophia simply replied, "I knew you could." It wasn't a relationship built on sacrifice anymore, but on recognition. One afternoon, her mother called, starting with a question that brought tears to Sophia's eyes. "I want to understand you better. If I've been wrong, would you show me how?" Sophia didn't answer right away, but she knew the journey from control to listening had begun. It wouldn't be easy, but it was real. She kept her boundaries. When her mother mentioned hosting Christmas, Sophia said, "This year I want to rest. I can join, but I won't host. No sighs, no anger, just a quiet." Okay on the other end of the line, but it was enough for Sophia to feel, "For the first time, I don't have to perform as the good daughter. I just need to be myself." After those initial shifts, Sophia didn't expect her family to suddenly become a picture-perfect version of respect and emotional intelligence. She didn't need long apologies or overnight transformations. What she needed and finally got was space to breathe, to choose, and to say no. Her relationship with her parents remained cautious, but noticeably different. Conversations were now short and polite. When her father asked, "Are you free this weekend?" Sophia knew it was an invitation, not a directive. When her mother mentioned visiting relatives, she said, "If you're comfortable with it, could they stay in the guest room?" That seemingly small question, something no one had thought to ask before, was now a sign of mutual growth. Not cutting off, but transforming. And Sophia no longer approached her family with defense as default. She showed up for important events but didn't take on the burden of organizing them. She engaged in conversations, listened, but if she felt overwhelmed, she quietly stepped back without needing to explain. Sophia's maturity showed in this simple truth: she didn't reject her family, she just stopped letting them define her. One early afternoon, while Sophia was reading in the quiet of her apartment, a text from her mother appeared. "Are you free? I was just thinking about when you were little. Not sure why, but I miss those days today." Sophia smiled. For the first time, her mother messaged not to request, not to plan, but just to connect. She replied, "I've been thinking of home too. Want to call?" The call lasted nearly an hour. No talk of responsibilities, no logistical planning. Just two women, one, a mother, one, learning to be her own woman. Speaking about the past, the misunderstandings, and the things that didn't need fixing. Just accepting. That's when Sophia realized she didn't need to walk away from her family to be free. She just had to redraw the line so everyone had room to breathe. And the beautiful part: when she dared to set boundaries, the people who truly loved her didn't leave. They simply learned to stand in the right place. Growing up, after all, wasn't about cutting ties. It was about keeping herself and still keeping them. 1 year after that first cafe conversation, Sophia sat alone in her small kitchen cooking her favorite vegetable soup. December had come colder than usual, but she felt warm not because of the heater, but because this space now felt entirely hers. No one walked in uninvited anymore. No one called her choices selfish simply because they didn't serve someone else. Sophia was still the daughter of the Jensen family, but now she wasn't the version they once expected. She was herself, Amid the aroma of simmering soup and soft jazz playing in the background, her phone rang. It was Lily. "What are you cooking?" her sister asked cheerfully. "Butternut squash soup. Want some?" "Yes, I'm coming over. I'll bring bread." The call ended with laughter, light, effortless, free of pressure or obligation. No one came out of duty. They came because they wanted to. Sophia looked around her small apartment, each corner echoing with her identity, and for the first time she understood real relationships don't begin with sacrifice. They begin when we're finally allowed to be ourselves. That Christmas, Sophia returned to her parents' home, not with a checklist of duties, but simply as herself. She brought a warm scarf for her mom, a gardening book for her dad, each gift wrapped by hand not to prove anything, but because she wanted to give without giving herself away. As she stepped inside, she noticed something different. No elaborate table settings. No nagging from her mother about who's in charge of the main course. No frantic timeline. Just soft music, the scent of cinnamon cookies, and eyes that looked at her not with expectation, but with welcome. Lily pulled her into the kitchen and whispered, "This year feels easier." Sophia smiled. Nothing more needed to be said. She didn't expect everything to be perfect from now on, but that night she knew if you're clear and grounded, people around you eventually learn. Not out of fear, but out of love. When night fell, Sophia sat on the front steps watching the flickering holiday lights. She thought of who she was a year ago, someone who trembled in this very house, afraid to say, "I don't agree." And now she was still that person, and yet someone new. Someone with a voice, a space, and most importantly, a self.